Welcome to a Telltale Books video. I'm Greg, and this video I'm going to be talking about another in my series about art and influences, but in this one I'm doing something a little different. I'm going to talk about my work, since the whole series is all about all of the influences that have come into my own work and driven me to want to do art. We are Telltale Books, bringing you the best in literature, literary topics, and graphic design and bookmaking.
If you want to support us, you can find us on Etsy and Pango, where you can find gently used, rare, and even top quality used books.
And if you like this video, be sure to hit the like button, the subscribe button, and maybe even that bell to be notified when new videos go live.
Thanks for joining us.
And so it's probably kind of important to be able to see what I'm talking about, because I'm constantly referring to my work and the fact that I wanted to become an artist, and all these things were big influences on me, and you haven't ever seen anything that I've done. Even more important is the fact that for at least the first the earliest books that Telltale Book will be publishing, I won't have money to hire another illustrator to do them, so I'm going to have to do them myself. So everything I'm talking about in this art series is going to influence what you'll see when that book is finally done. And so this is kind of like a prelude to what you can expect from me when I get to that level. I'm not going to hold up the physical artworks, and most of them are paintings and drawings. I haven't done so much digital artwork, mostly paintings and drawings. So they could be held up, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to digitally superimpose them. So watch the screen for the artwork. I kind of asked Emily about doing this because I was a little worried that it would come off as too conceited to be doing this video. And so I kind of consulted with her, and she said, no, as long as it's relevant to fantasy art and literature and illustration. But I feel I do need to, in order to make my point about art and why I'm not going to be talking about certain types of art, I kind of need to take you through what happened with me there. How I got into doing art is, I was a kid. I loved to color in coloring books. I loved to draw. My dad had recently been shopping for a new car, and I went with him, and so I got deeply interested in cars, specifically new cars. And so my parents got me a copy of Car and Driver magazine that had all the brand new cars for 1973. My dad ended up buying a 1972 Chevy Impala, which was a beautiful car. And my parents bought me this Car and Driver magazine, which had all the new cars for 1973. And I don't know what prompted me to do it. I was probably about 6 years old at the time. But I laid on the family room floor with the magazine and some paper, and I was just freehand drawing the cars that I saw in the pictures, reproducing the pictures basically. And my parents thought I was doing a really great job. So from that point, they started encouraging me to start doing art, and they bought me watercolor paints, acrylic paints, some sketchbooks, brushes, and bought me these how-to books by Walter Foster. So it was a very big series, lots of different books in the series of different aspects of drawing and painting. And my parents bought me some of these Walter Foster books, and I went through them and I tried some of the exercises. I quickly found out that I really thought it was boring. Because everything in those books was landscapes, still lifes, portraits. That's all. That was it. The most interesting one is, I'll put up a picture of, was the airplanes and spacecraft book. I thought that was kind of cool. But all the rest of them were just portraits, still lifes, landscapes. And I didn't care to do any of that. I didn't find any of that exciting. I didn't find it inspiring. I didn't want to do that. And so I kept at it for a little while, but then I set everything aside and didn't touch it again. Until in 1977, when I started reading the H.G. Wells books and started getting into reading and started seeing all those book covers and magazine covers. And they weren't just still life, landscapes, and portraits. They were cool. They were fantastical, with spaceships and aliens and robots and fantastic creatures and strange worlds and all this really cool stuff going on that I thought was awesome. And this was what I really wanted to do with art. I love this kind of art. And so I found my inspiration and sat down and started trying to do my own work. And you can probably guess, at this time, with no formal instruction, I was 12 years old, just using pencil and praying watercolor set. I did have tube acrylics, but I didn't really know how to use them. You can probably guess that the work I did pretty well sucked. And it did. And I knew that it sucked. And so I tried copying certain paintings, but of course a lot of the paintings that I was looking at on the book covers and really loving were way above my skill level at that time. There was no way I could even attempt to copy most of them, but I did find some that were a little more simple, that didn't have too much going on, and so I tried copying those, and I did an okay job for someone who had zero schooling in art and hadn't really been doing any drawing, hadn't learned all the basics of art. I did okay. But of course none of those were worth hanging on to. So all of that artwork is gone. Okay. And it's okay, because you wouldn't have wanted to see it. None of it was any good. But I wanted to keep going forward. And so I kept looking at artwork and kept trying new things, kept trying to challenge myself, trying to do things that I'd never done. And I did a lot of it, and it was all with science fiction themes. And it all showed my lack of skill. But in challenging myself and trying to do things I had never done, I did learn things and I did expand my skill, but there was still a lot of basic things that I needed to learn, frankly. But I went to public school, and public school just didn't treat art classes as anything important. It was basically just study hall. The teachers literally were out in the hall doing hall monitor duty during the classes. And I really wanted to learn. But the public school system in Racine, Wisconsin at that time just didn't care about it. So they didn't give me any opportunities to really learn anything. Wasn't until I got out of high school I did go to a small school in Racine called Spectrum, which is still there and still operational. And the owner and director and teacher of that school, Denise Zing, she did a great job giving me all those basic foundational things: perspective, how to shade to make objects look 3D, what she called sensitive line, composition, color theory. She introduced me to Johannes Itten and color theory, and I learned the science of color. She did a lot for me, and it was at that time that my paintings started to get decent. Still nothing great, but they were better. They were a lot better. And I'm going to be showing some of those really early works here as I'm talking. I'll just flash them up for a little bit and then they'll go away. And these are works that I did before I went to the Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design. Okay. And during this time, there was like 5 years between graduating high school and going to college when I just worked. And when I did go to college, at first I went to UW Parkside wanting to go into physics, and I realized that was a bit much for me, so then I went to the Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design. Well, during that 5 years before Parkside, I was doing paintings in my spare time and still trying to learn, still trying to grow, still trying to get better. And I did get better in some ways. I also had people ask me to do paintings for them. But the first thing I ran into is they didn't want the paintings that I really loved doing. They saw those paintings and they said, boy, that's really good, but could you paint me a barn, or could you paint me a lighthouse? Or, that's all they wanted from me. They didn't want what I really wanted to do. They didn't want my art. What they wanted was what was in their head. And that was very frustrating for me because I was doing all kinds of paintings that I really didn't want to do. And a lot of them I did a very good job at. Like this one is a forest road up north. My uncle, he shot the photograph that this is based on and gave it to me and said, could you do an oil painting of it? So I did, and I think I did a really good job on that. But it's not what I really wanted to be doing. It's not what really inspired me, what really excited me. I did a good job, but it's technically a good job. Otherwise, it's a painting that does nothing. It's just a road through the woods. It means nothing. There's no story to it. There's no philosophy to it. It means nothing to me. So it was just a technical exercise. And I can, when I got into school, first going to UW Parkside, I did take art classes there in addition to my physics classes because I had room in my schedule, so why not? And studied painting there with a teacher named Dennis Bayuzik, who I feel was a really good teacher. Everybody else seemed to not like him. I thought he was great. I got along with him fine. I liked his work. He liked what I was doing. He was very encouraging to me. And I feel I learned a lot from him. And everybody else just put the man down. And I thought that was so wrong. But anyway, I did some paintings at UW Parkside, which I'm putting up on the screen. And I enjoyed them, but they were class exercises. So once again, mostly not what I really wanted to do, except for one, which is an okay painting, not a great painting, but it's a still life, but it's about me, and it pulls in a lot of science fictional elements, mainly from Arthur Clarke's Childhood's End. And it's an okay painting. It's not a great painting, but I like it. but outside of classes, I was just doing lighthouses, and a couple of guys asked me to do paintings of their boats, which turned out well. Technically, really nice paintings, but again, not really what I wanted to be doing. So I was developing the technical skills, and when I went to MyEd, once again, I was doing class exercises, doing a lot of still life setups, doing a lot of assignments for the classes, which had, they were meant to be exercises. They weren't meant to be art. They weren't meant to be what I really want to do as an artist. That's not what it was about. It was about teaching me skills, and I learned even more skills there and really built my skill set up. And I feel by the time I was done with MyEd, I had all the technical skill I needed to do what I needed to do, what I wanted to do. But then I got into my graphic design career and did a lot less paintings. I still did do some, but I did a lot less. And then I got back into reading. I did a lot less, and then I got back into reading, and then I got back into my artwork and joined Sheboygan Visual Artists, and there I wanted to show my artwork, the stuff I really believe in, but the people there were at odds with that. They didn't like it. They didn't like the style. They were all about, everybody should try new things and expand their horizons. But really what they were about is trying to tell me I shouldn't be doing the stuff that I love doing, that I should be doing the kind of art that they did. And when I turned the tables on them and tried to get them to do my kind of art, it was absolutely not, no way, no how, forget it. There were a small number of the artists that joined me in that particular project, but most of the members didn't like it, and so I pretty much ended my time with them. But during that time I did take their advice and tried doing some other types of things, but I saw it really as just exercises, building my skills. And so these works that I did while I was at SVA, they were skill building exercises. And at the end of my time at SVA, I just realized that my artwork is driven by my fascination with literature, my fascination with storytelling, my fascination with the fantastic and the surreal. Those are the things that really drive me. And so those types of works which I'm putting up here, those are the works which are really my art, the stuff I really want to do. Being in a small town in central Wisconsin, it's always been very hard to get my artwork seen by people who are interested in this kind of thing, because the people who would be interested in this are the people who are going to the science fiction conventions. But there's never any science fiction conventions around here. There has been one in Madison, but that's been specifically a feminist science fiction convention. Otherwise, the closest conventions have been in Chicago, and everything else I would have to travel a long distance to, and I've just never had the money to be able to do that. So I've never gone to the science fiction conventions, really. But that's where I should be showing my artwork. Can't do that. So when Emily and I started Telltale Books, I saw, well, we're not going to have money to hire illustrators, so here's the perfect opportunity for me to jump in and try my hand at something that I have always, always, always wanted to do. And so this whole art series is basically preparing me and you for what I want to do with Telltale Books when we start doing our books. The early books, I'm going to be illustrating. Emily's going to be doing illustrations. We won't be able to afford anybody else unless there's somebody out there that wants to work for free. I would prefer to pay illustrators, but I just don't have the money. So starting out, I'm the cheapest illustrator I know, and I really, really, really want to try my hand at it. So that's what I'm going to be doing. And it would be nice if Telltale is successful in that endeavor. It would be really nice then to have the money to be able to hire other professional illustrators. But out of the gate, that's just not going to happen. Out of the gate, I got to keep my costs as tight as I possibly can, and that means I need to use a free illustrator. Me and Emily. Yeah, and so it's really fortunate that it matches up to what I want to do with my artwork. It's really fortunate that my artwork is in sync with what we want to do with Telltale Books. So I hope in the near future or not too distant future, you'll be seeing new work from me illustrating books and stories that we discuss. And I'll be putting them up on these videos. I'll be using them for books, or maybe even some chapbooks we might try. And I hope you'll be interested in seeing that. And I also hope you'll be interested in all the rest of this art series, where I'm going to be going through all the other artists that have influenced me all through the entire history of art. I have studied art history at MIAD and before MIAD, all the way back to high school. I was in the school library in my spare time, digging through the art books and checking them out, and looking at all the works of the Renaissance and the Baroque period and the Surrealists and the Romanticists, the Symbolists, and learning all of art history. And so all of it I have studied it, and it has been a huge, huge, huge influence on me. But the biggest primary influence is always going to be those science fiction book and magazine covers that I saw when I was a teenager, when I was 12, 13, 14 years old and started reading this stuff. I was looking at those and just falling in love with it all. So I do hope you'll join me on this journey through art as I track my ideas and track my influences and ultimately arrive at the answer to the question of why I don't want to do still lifes. Why I don't want to do landscapes. Why I don't want to do the kind of artwork that would sell in Two Rivers, Wisconsin. So here we go. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and come on along for the journey.